Hello, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. And our topic for tonight is where do we stand as a nation? And what I mean by that is we have failed to build a dump the corruption movement in 2023 and thus far in 2024. We only have a small number of people who adhere, to our movement. I'm very grateful for them, but we are just a little trickle at this point. As a result, in the aftermath of President Biden's decision to stop running and the surge of support for Kamala Harris, we're increasingly down to the same two-party, two-person choice, or if you count the VPs, four-person choice, with Harris taking Biden's place and lack of support for third-party, less bought candidates. So where we stand as a nation is that we are an oligarchy. We are controlled by the big money because our candidates are controlled by the big money. Hi, Steve. How you doing? We don't really have control over our politicians. They don't act in our interest. They act in the donor interest. Our big efforts today, our big involvements, other than the things we do just to keep the political system going, our big efforts are in Ukraine. And we have some awfully wealthy corporate interests that in turn are run by extremely wealthy people that wanted the war inside of Ukraine. Hello, Brandy. Great to see you here. And they have wanted us to continue to prosecute this war. They have lined up to buy agricultural land inside of Ukraine, the richest soil, on earth. They have lined up to buy real estate there. They have lined up to feed off the material wealth, of Ukraine. In the hopes that we could win that particular war. Well, even though the Ukraine forces are still fighting, it's quite clear now that they are beaten. When the soldiers of Ukraine absolutely collapse, may be measured in just a matter of weeks. If it turns out to be months, it will only be because Putin doesn't want to collapse the whole effort inside of Ukraine until after the elections in the United States. It seems as though Putin doesn't particularly favor Trump because he considers Trump to be an unpredictable actor. And he would rather see the Democrats act So my hunch is that he doesn't want to totally defeat Western forces inside of Ukraine until after the election. He wants to give a gift to the Democratic Party. But still, we can see the game is up. The West has nothing going for it. NATO has nothing going for it. It may even be that Putin can't control the situation there, so that the collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces and the obvious defeat of Ukraine will come before the election, in which case that's going to be a problem for the Democrats to cope with. But still, the point here is that that great effort by ourselves inside of Ukraine to prop up the regime there is failing, in spite of all the donors in back of our effort there. Then we have another area where our donors are really, really involved. To some extent, these are other donors. To some extent, these are the same donors, but that area, of course, is Israel and Gaza and Western Asia, okay, in general. And there we have, hi, Catherine, and there we have, unfortunately, a larger regional war, which, okay, is shaping up. And while we would like to avoid, okay, a regional war, well, our decision makers would like to get the Israelis to stand down and to negotiate a settlement. The administration doesn't appear to have the freedom, okay, of movement to stop the arms shipments to Israel, because they're deathly afraid of the reaction of their donors. In fact, in Israel, they seem to be even more a prisoner of their donors than they are with respect to Ukraine. That's our situation. We are an oligarchy that is out of control, that is taking nuclear risks, okay, at this point. And the democratic forces inside of our country stand helpless before the oligarchy and the two parties, okay, that serve the oligarchy. So, what can we do now? Well, I suggest a few things. First, there are only 3.5 months left. I'm afraid I don't see any chance, even though I favor her and have been very impressed by her run so far. I don't see any chance for Jill Stein, okay, to win. That doesn't mean I won't try to help her and help the Green Party. Tomorrow, there will be a panel of MMTers, and I am one, who will be showing the Finding the Money documentary to the Green Party of New Jersey in order to get them conversant with MMT so they can use it in their campaigns for Congress and for the Senate. So I'm still willing to devote the time that I have to try to help the Green Party out. But I have to say, that's not because I think the Green Party is going to win. I just hope we can do something for the Green Party for future elections. I think that's important. It's important enough to spend some of my time, in doing that. Uh, the Green Party seems to be proceeding along and getting on the ballot in various states also. I suspect they will end up being on the ballot perhaps in between 40 and 45 states. But they've already lost, the state of New York, which is a real key state. They can't get on the ballot there any longer. Chances for that are over. So no Green Party on the ballot in New York State, which is one of the states in which perhaps the Green Party was the strongest. As for the other third party efforts, the Cornel West effort, the Claudia de la Cruz effort, the libertarian efforts, they all are on the ropes to get any reasonable percentage of the vote, depending on what you consider a reasonable percentage of the vote. Well, how is Bobby Kennedy doing? His latest polling seems to be in the 5 to 8% area that I've seen. He seemed to think that he can do better than that. We still have 3.5 months left, and maybe he can. But the situation which existed before Joe Biden dropping out, which is that he was feeding off of great dissatisfaction with Joe Biden, that situation seems to have gone south in a surge of support for Harris, who now seems to be enjoying a surge in her popularity. And this has resulted in a decline of support for Bobby Kennedy. Now, while that decline in support has gone on, he has become more and more successful in getting on the ballot, in many states. He now seems to have gotten enough signatures. Of course, he still has some legal fights ahead of him. In some 40 states with 450 electoral votes, and there's still a month to go. In fact, a little more than a month before ballot access process is wrapped up in all the states. Looks to me like he can get between 45 to 50 states and therefore be competing in enough states to get a large number, of electoral votes. But he has other problems. He has other problems. Let me go down the list of those problems again for those who don't follow me so closely. Hang on a little. Having a bit of trouble with my scrolling here. Has the following problems that I perceive. First, he wants to be president. He's not going to go after the filibuster. If he doesn't go after the filibuster, he'll never get any good things passed. He'll be deluged with hostile moves made by the Republicans and the Democrats, who will want to restrict him to one term. He's not going to fight, for Medicare for all. He has said that already. Even though he thinks it's the system that should prevail, he's taking a position exactly the same as Obama's. So that's enormously popular, and he's not going to fight for it. He's taking big money from contributors. I still think he's still seeking big money, even after he's gotten a big money stake from his vice presidential candidate. He still continues to take big money while talking about corporate wealth, the abuses of the corporation, being very negative on the role of big money in politics. He's still taking it. So how credible is he when he claims he wants to get big money out of politics? And of course, there's his idiotic support for Israel in the face of a genocide. I mean, what is going on with that? What is going on with that? Then there's his running an austerity campaign about how terrible federal debts and deficits are, and how fiscal responsibility, as he defines it, which is low or no debts and deficits, and generally his views on federal spending. They are not in line with the paradigm of MMT economics at all, which is to say that they are wrong. His views are wrong. And if they motivate him as president, it will be a disaster. And of course, there's the climate emergency. He doesn't believe in the Green New Deal as a solution for the climate emergency. He seems to be strong on the environment, and on generative agriculture, which are certainly aspects of the Green New Deal. But he doesn't believe in the Green New Deal itself. And that's actually consistent with his position on federal debts and deficits and fiscal responsibility. But it's ridiculous in terms of the real needs of the people of the United States. And there's the issue of doing something to neuter the out-of-control Supreme Court. Never talks about that, never pays attention to that. He never says anything to condemn the actions of the Supreme Court. That's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Then there's his view, of Bitcoin. He's crazy for Bitcoin, crazy for the technology. He thinks there's something wrong with fiat currency. In his view, fiat currency leads to wars, rather than wars leading to fiat currency, which is the right causal connection. Historically, the wars have come first. That's when people abandon the gold standard, because they can't fight a war under the gold standard. Not that Bobby is for the gold standard. He appears to be for a Bitcoin standard, which is very similar to a gold standard, because Bitcoin supply is limited by the capabilities to mine Bitcoins. His latest thing is that He wants to spend huge quantities of dollars to buy huge quantities of bitcoins. But the huge quantities of bitcoins are not there. Bitcoin quantities do not rival dollar quantities as a supply of money. So all he's going to do in buying bitcoins is drive up the value of bitcoins, which will have the effect of making the Bitcoin billionaires even richer and more powerful, thus strengthening the oligarchy and worsening the inequality in our country. In other words, as a candidate, he is highly flawed. He appears to think deeply about certain things and to have a critical perspective about what he believes. Is certainly a family characteristic of the earlier Kennedys, and a good thing to be concerned about. But he's not applying that critical perspective to Bitcoin, at all. His views on that they're just simply reprehensible, as are all the other views that I stated here. Furthermore, as these views have become further known by people, and as he's not announced any changes in any positions, and as we're now down to maybe 3.5 months left, I think it's less than 100 days, isn't it, at this point, until the election. He's trapped in these positions. I outlined 8 positions he needs to repudiate in order to be a decent candidate. I don't think that's going to happen. And that leaves us with the 2 horrible choices of Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. What do we need from Donald Trump and or from Harris? Maybe we should ask, what can we get from them? With all the activism in the world, what can we get from them? Well, we can't get a decent foreign policy from Donald Trump. He will probably try to end the war, the Ukraine war, because his donors probably don't want to keep it going. He won't be bucking his big donors if he tries to end that war. And his personal predilections are to end it, not to fight with Putin, at least not there. So maybe we get that out of him if he's elected. But probably that war will be over soon anyway. It may well be over well before he takes office. Even if Putin decides to carry the Ukrainians until after the election, that still means that by Christmas the war will be over. Donald Trump won't have to do anything to end it because Putin will end it. So in a way, we're not getting that from Donald Trump. We're getting it whether Trump's elected or whether Harris, is elected. What else won't we get from Donald Trump? We don't get any change in policies with respect to Israel, except to make that policy even worse. He's already indicated that he would make it even worse. Much more likely to get us into World War III and a nuclear war over Western Asia than Harris. Of course, we might be involved, in a nuclear war in Western Asia before either of them takes office. I mean, we've got a retaliation from the Ukrainians coming up. Hezbollah attacks are going to increase, in intensity. I'm sure the Houthis are about to be heard from in great force pretty soon. The axis of resistance is going to be very, very active. The Israelis are going to try to drag us into a regional war there. And with the Russians polishing off the Ukrainians, they will be getting ready to get involved in that regional war themselves. Maybe not with troops, but maybe with a very high level of support, including nuclear support, for the axis of resistance, especially if Israel turns to tactical nuclear weapons, which many people think is a likely move, on their part. So the situation in Western Asia promises to be appalling over the next few months. If Harris should win, she's going to leave us with the oligarchy. But if it's at the beginning of her term, and she's not so worried about her Israeli nutty donors, specifically AIPAC, and their allies, if she feels she has a little space to deal with them, she might force Israel to end that war if they haven't already accelerated it into a nuclear war in West Asia or a heavy regional war, in West Asia. If she wins, she might feel free to stop things or to pressure Biden, to stop things. So we might get that from her. We'll probably see the end of the Ukraine war. In any case, whatever she and her donors want, they may not be in control. So the question is, what else could we possibly get from her? One thing we need is that she not appoint some Israeli supporting nut to be her vice president. I'm referring to Josh Shapiro, of course. What she can do that would be good, and we'll learn in a few days whether she's done it, is to go with Tim Walz as her vice presidential candidate. That would be good. The other thing she maybe can do is get with Joe Biden, and his advisors, and plan with them a campaign to reverse the horrible decisions that have been made by the Supreme Court, actually since going back to 1978, but at least going back to 2010 and going forward, to the present. I've had other streams on that. I've outlined which decisions have to be reversed. I believe they can all be reversed by passing legislation and by including the exceptions clause that prevents the Supreme Court from judicially reviewing the legislation. That is passed. So that's what she can do. And that's what we should try to get her to do in every way we can. We need to pressure for all of it, with a focus on reversing the terrible decisions of the Supreme Court. Notice how critical that is. If she could pass a law reversing the Citizens United decision of 2010, that would tremendously weaken the oligarchy going forward. We need that so badly. We need the presidential immunity decision of the Supreme Court to be repealed so badly. We need the Loper-Bright decision, getting rid of the Chevron deference, to be repealed so badly. We need the voting rights decisions of the Supreme Court to be repealed so badly. All of those and more. Oh, and of course, we need the Dobbs decision to be reversed so very badly. Can't forget that. A decision that affects half of our people. We have to restore the right to choice. All of those things have got to be done. She has to organize with Biden, not just to win the election, but in case they do not win the election, to repeal, in case they do not win the election, but they do win the House and the Senate back. She needs to work with Biden to repeal all those decisions of the Supreme Court before Trump has a chance, to get back in, before he has a chance to take office. Because if he has a chance to take office and implement Project 2025 or something like it, and have the presidential immunity to do it, I think we can all, in the words of the prophet, kiss our asses goodbye. That's what I think. So if she wins, that's got to be a priority for her. If she loses, that should still be a priority for her and for Biden. Okay, so that's it. That's what we need to focus on, them doing. Now, that advice might change if a miracle happens with respect to Bobby Kennedy, and he understands that he's following the wrong road, and he has a revelation on the road to Damascus, as it were, and he changes his positions on a whole host of issues. I don't expect that. That's not a realistic expectation on my part. I mention it only because it's a possibility, with the recognition that it's a long shot. If we don't get that, though, we're not going to get Bobby Kennedy having any chance to win. So it's down to Harris, and to Trump. And even though I'm not a vote blue, no matter who person, I'm not talking about who we should vote for here. People should vote for who their conscience tells them, to vote for. But in their political activity, I'm saying that there should be pressure on Biden and Harris to do the things that I have mentioned. Screw voting. That's not going to count for much anyway, since what's going to happen is that it's probably down to either Trump or Harris, unless a miracle happens. So that's what I'm focused on for the next 3.5 months. I'll be streaming on issues with a hope that somehow I can influence what these people do about the Supreme Court over the next not over the next 3.5 months, but over the next it's really over the next 5.5 months. They got to do something about the mess the Supreme Court has left us in order to create any hope, for the future. So now I see I have, a lot of comments, but what I've been telling you is I think that's where we stand, as a nation. We stand in thrall, to an oligarchy. We have a whole host of policy needs and no way of getting those policy needs actually satisfied, no hope for getting them satisfied, unless the oligarchy is defanged. And it can't be defanged without repealing what the Supreme Court, has done. So, I'm going to take your comments now. So Steve says, hello, Doc, and Brandy says, hello, Joe. Catherine Lewandowski says, hi, Joe, and she says she agrees, probably with my initial statements on where we stood. Next, she says, I feel that we need to focus on getting good people in office in Congress and our state houses. Yeah, I think so, too. The more good people we can get in Congress and our state houses, the better our chances will be to get Congress to pass the legislation we need to have passed to repeal the mess the Supreme Court has made. Catherine also says at 8:14, we have several Green Party candidates in Washington, the governor, and 2 congressional seats. And our primary is on Tuesday for our down ticket races. I'm familiar, at least, with one of your congressional candidates, which is Jason, of course. I know he's not only Jill's the campaign manager, but he's also a candidate for Congress, okay, in his district. It is important that people vote for him. And by the way, I want to make the following more general point. If you have a chance to vote for Green Party candidates for Congress or for governor or for down ballot races, okay, then vote for them, because they will always be against what Trump is trying to do. They will always be for cleaning up the Supreme Court mess. So you don't have to vote for a Democrat in order to vote for somebody who's going to try to pass the kind of legislation that I just have advocated for. You could vote Green in every case where there's somebody running for Congress if the Green Party has people on the ballot in your state. I don't think the Green Party is going to have a congressional candidate in my district, and I mightily regret that. We really need one. Catherine says, in our primaries on Tuesday for our down ticket races. Well, I wish you luck, Catherine. I certainly think that Jason should be your candidate, and I certainly hope that he can finally win running as a Green this time. Evelina says, Jill has received a surge of support from Arab Americans. She is 18 points ahead. Well, tell me, Evelina, where is she 18 points ahead? Is she 18 points ahead in the whole country? Is she 18 points ahead, in Michigan? Where is she 18 points ahead? And who is she ahead of? Since dump the corruption is not going to happen this year, we need to go after the big corporations. We do, Robert, but what does that even mean if we don't have a dump the corruption campaign? How are we going to go after the big corporations? Who are we going to vote for who's going to go after the big corporations? Well, we could vote for Green Party candidates. Yeah, we certainly could. And as I said before, that will still result in stopping the Republicans from controlling the House or stopping the Republicans from controlling the Senate, because the Green Party people will line up with the Democrats rather than the Republicans when it comes to who's going to control the House and who's going to control, the Senate. So if we put Green Party people, in office, it's good. It has the effect of moving the Democrats over to the left, and it has the effect of giving a non-Republican majority in the House and the Senate. And that's what we need, a non-Republican majority at this point. Catherine says, wow. Wish I knew what she said wow in relation to. Bob Copeland says RFK Jr. is going to get ballot access due to his name. It's not just due to his name, it's due to the money he's had to work with from Shanahan, and from others. He has had enough money to get ballot access. Catherine says, what do I think about the election interference case in D.C. being sent back to that court? I think Tanya Chutkin is going to give Trump a real spanking. But then Trump is going to appeal to the Supreme Court, And that is bad news because that's going to take the case beyond November 5th. I'm not sure what's going to happen at the Supreme Court following that. It may be the case that the Supreme Court makes a decision before Trump gets into the presidency. And it may be they're unwilling to completely distort the legal picture in deciding questions on that case. If there's a lot of pressure on the external pressure on the Supreme Court for its corruption, they may get scared and decide that what they have to do is, even if Trump is elected president, that what they have to do is to put him in jail and prevent him from taking office. And Brandy says, RFK Jr. supports genocide. No, thank you. I am voting for Stein. Well, so am I, Brandy. I think I'm going to vote for Stein, too. I'm not going to vote for RFK Jr. unless he stops supporting genocide. But as I say, it's not about voting now. If we had to dump the corruption campaign that was strong, it would be about voting. If we had to dump the corruption campaign that was strong, it would be about voting because that would give Jill a chance to win. But without it, in that case, we vote for Jill because we like her better than any of the other candidates. But we don't really delude ourselves into thinking that's going to have any great effect. And we direct our political activity to trying to get a hold of the Supreme Court in the crisis. Catherine says, I am appalled that we are even being asked to vote for a criminal candidate who has committed espionage with national secrets. Yes, I'm appalled at that too. And a criminal been convicted of 34 felony accounts in the state of New York. I don't think that's trivial. Catherine says, I agree Kennedy is very flawed. She says, yes. Catherine says, which is such a horrible statement. What horrible statement was that? Nishoba Chomak Shuti says, Nutter Butters. And John B. says, how is it U.S. Constitution has been so readily and comprehensively discarded? Didn't all your serving politicians utter oath to uphold and support the same? Of course they did. And Nishoba says, yeah, right. And he says, look at Kamala's record in 2017 when she became senator. She signed on to a bill condoning Obama for not allowing Israel to do everything it wanted under him. Kamala's to the right of Obama on Israel. Yes, but she still might be to the left of Biden. It appears the U.S. Constitution is merely a citizen wish list, just so much enabling window dressing for wealthy elite rulers. What a scam on the common people. And they shed blood to found it. They shed blood to found it, and we've shed blood over many, many years to defend it. Not just the founders who have shed blood. And by the way, it's likely we'll be shedding blood again when there's another attack on the Constitution. Because, if Trump loses, they're going into the streets. And we're probably going into the streets too. And a lot of blood is going to be shed. We have to expect that. I mean, it's only realistic to expect that. To expect that Trump is going to overturn, an election if he loses one again. Even as Harris does not strike me as someone who is willing to make significant change, even risk a divorce. Okay, laugh out loud. Well, okay, I'll tell you, Evelina, there's no indication that her husband is a fanatic, okay, when it comes to Israel. He may be Jewish, but it doesn't look like uh, he's a fanatic. Catherine says he has too many friends in high places. Eva Senna says, my conscience tells me to vote hashtag Jill Stein. So does mine. Catherine says, if I make it through my primary, I don't know if I'll be able to vote for her, though. I don't know if she'll be on the ballot in Virginia. If I make it through my primary on Tuesday, maybe you can interview me again. Sure, Catherine, if you can make it through your primary on Tuesday, I'll be happy to. Hello, Washington's executive director is running for governor as a Green. Oh, you mean, yeah, what, sorry, I'm slipping. Evelina says, I believe it was a national poll. Okay, I'll look around for it, Evelina. I'm very interested in that poll. The only person I can vote for is Jill Stein, that is in the Green Party. Well, it looks like we got a number of Jill Stein supporters here. The money from rich donors means he represents rich donors instead of the people. The money from rich donors means he represents rich donors instead of the people. That causes corruption. RFK Jr. also doesn't support Medicare for all. Well, I did say that earlier, Brandy, didn't I? I did criticize him for that. Robert says, Joe Firestone, I have had it with you and I won't be back here. Dump the corruption has been a failure. Well, I'm sorry you're giving up on that, Robert. I haven't given up on that. I'll be continuing to campaign for dump the corruption as the days go forward. After the 2024 election, I will continue to campaign for it in the hopes that we can get that movement going by 2026. We've got to have it to end the oligarchy. So I'll keep on pushing for it. I'll be sorry if you don't come back here, Robert, but I know you're upset with my views on Ukraine. That's okay. I'm upset with your views on Ukraine. Catherine says, right now in my race, the incumbent GOP is afraid it will be me against the MAGA extremist that he ousted out 2 years ago. Who is the incumbent GOP in your race, Catherine? And John B. says, I suspect a lot is yet to happen in U.S. politics. I think Trump will be stopped yet. Too many people stand to lose, i.e. deep state, and proven politicians, treasonous liars, don't want to face jail. Catherine Lewandowski says, Sam Lowe. But Catherine, are you running for the state house? State rep for LD 39, Legislative District 39. Good luck, Catherine. I sure hope you win. And if I can help you with an interview, I'll do that. I agree with what John B. said. I suspect a lot is yet to happen in U.S. politics. I think Trump will be stopped yet. Too many people stand to lose, i.e. deep state and proven politician, treasonous liars don't want to face jail. Yep, they don't want to face jail. Joe, you think your opinion is the only one that counts. No, I don't. But I'm entitled to my opinion, and especially on my stream. I know that other people think differently. I know that you think differently. I know you're entitled to your opinion, Robert. I don't have a problem with that. But I have the right, okay, to disagree with it and disagree with it strongly. Okay. Are there any other comments for me to entertain before I sign off? Okay, so let me say this. I won't be going over to D's tonight. I encourage the rest of you to go over to D's, but I won't be going over there because I have some other things to do for the effort I'm involved in, okay, for tomorrow. Robert says, I don't like your attitude. All right, Robert, that's okay. Okay, so because of that, and because, but that effort is but tomorrow, I have to prepare tonight, okay, for it. And I won't be able to join Dee and Friends, okay, tonight. Okay, but I hope that you will join her. I think she has a very, very good program that's coming up, okay, on Israel, okay, in Palestine. Brandy says, we also now have concerns of a war, okay, with Iran. Okay, I know we do. And I think what we need from Harris, if she wins, is for her to stop any war with Iran. And what we also need to do, of course, is to pressure Biden not to get involved there between now and the election. And also during the post-election period. He's got to keep us out of war with Iran because we will lose that war. There is no question about it. So, I want to say I'll be seeing you next on Tuesday. I'll have to take, okay, the rest of the weekend off. On Tuesday, I expect to have my show at 9 o'clock, and if Dee has a show at 8, I'll probably be joining her, okay, at 8 in support of her show, okay, on Tuesday. So thank you very much for coming. Attendance was pretty good here tonight. So I thank you all for coming, including you, Robert. I thank you for coming too. John B. says, the U.S. people have got to stand up for what's right. What if they declared a war and no one stepped forward? Well, they have recruiting problems now, John B. Brandy says, I have family and friends in the military, even though I am anti-war and am concerned for them. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brandy. I'm not aware of any family members that I have who are in the military now. Evelina says, thanks, okay, and good night. And I think it is time for me to say good night because, okay, it's 9:02. Thank you all for coming, and I'll see you Tuesday, okay, at 9 o'clock.